every development is driven by economic considerations. So we want to make the processes more effective, and of course we want to reduce costs, and there are a lot of things where a lot of aspects in finance where you could do this. Spontaneously I thought about equity research, a very data-driven part of finance where you have to collect as many data points as possible for getting the best, let's say, idea about a company or financial markets in general, something where data or the right data, the best judgments are very crucial. Portfolio management or wealth management in general, or trading and market making are other things. We have a lot of human errors in that field, and it's very cost intensive if human beings doing that things. Just thinking about, you have the order to buy 100 Apple stocks. If you buy 1,000 Apple stocks, it's just a zero. But these are human errors that happen every day, and you do that very slowly. And in order, or when you have machines, they do that much faster. Strong institutions, of course, because when you have better data sets, you have a better idea about your clients, about the market environment. I just put the examples of know your customers, so the KYC process of every bank at the beginning when you open an account is very important, and the better information you get, the more effective it is. Monitoring national cash flows and fraud, or fighting financial crime and money laundering. But also right now, think about the situation that we have in the United States since Friday. Probably you read it about the Silicon Valley Bank. Right now it's very crucial to get the right ideas what is going on right now. And the company, the bank that has a better data and better algorithms will definitely have a better situation or position in the upcoming hours. So right now, actually today is probably one of the most interesting days in financial markets since months. So you can see there's a lot of movements going on, and let's see how that goes in the next days. If we put that on a higher level, of course, an increase in better data or the increase in connected devices and actions enable financial intermediaries to learn more about their customers and can, like that, increase or improve the stability of the entire market. I already put here versus herding. We will discuss that on the upcoming slides, that of course exactly this advantage can also be a disadvantage due to the fact that algorithms can act much faster and much more elaborated than human beings. And an advantage, and that's exactly the argument where I would like to focus on in that talk, is the reduction of ethical biases, especially human biases that we have. So let's go, please, on the next slides. Next slide, yes. Thank you. So here I just want to mention the classic arguments when we think about AI and frameworks for AI. Of course, we want to avoid classic maleficence. AI should not result in intended devastating consequences for individuals and the society. We always say that AI is a dual-use good. You can use it for good or for bad. And of course, we should have a framework where we avoid, let's say, intentional misuse, but it's nothing that I would like to elaborate here on right now. Autonomy, data protection are, of course, topics that are important in financial markets, as we have very personal data for everybody. And again, the thing that I right now mentioned, herding, and the ethics of complexity, that's a own topic, very interesting if you would like to look into that. Herding as a systemic risk, as with algorithms, similar data and similar market interpretations is spread very fast. So the moment, how is trading working? Actually, I mean, since the 80s, like with a Bloomberg terminal, you make a conditional order in the beginning. You say, if A, B, C, and D is happening, then I would directly like to buy X, Y, Z. And of course, with artificial intelligence and robot trading, these things get even more, get faster every day. And the moment you see that in financial markets, when the market loses like 0.5% or 1% in a very short time frame, you directly see that it loses another 1% or 2% because all the algorithms directly come into it and trade very fast. And so the last point is exactly the thing that I would like to mention right now. Of course, the discrimination argument that we have also when we're focusing on other topics, not only in finance. But in my research, I see that the financial markets, or I always call it the investment contexts, they trigger specific moral biases that we have as human beings, and therefore I would like to present a short project, a short paper that I published last year. If you could go to the next slide, please. So we know that artificial intelligence can generate biases based on a wide variety of factors. We see that it has already a major effect on financial markets, of course, for years, as I already mentioned. And in this study, I want to describe a bias that is related to financial markets and religion, actually. So, of course, there could be many biases triggered, but I think the bias due to your religion is something where we don't have so much work on it, because it's not so easy in the beginning to know which religion someone is following, no? In the Human Rights Declaration, however, we said that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms, you know that, independent or without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, and religion. And that's the interesting thing, especially when we think about the German history. So if we go to the next slide, I show you the research question that we followed in this paper. Is the same investment classified as either ethical or unethical, depending on an arbitrary characteristics of the investor, as gender or religion? We tried like a lot of factors and thought whatever. I mean, there are some aspects of humans where you say that there might be a different, where it makes sense to discriminate. Think about the profession. Someone that is doing their profession for 50 years, of course, it has to be treated ethically than someone that is doing that for 5 minutes. And so we wanted to find like a very strange argument here, and said let's find the religion as one aspect, and let's check whether the religion of a person has an impact on our judgment for morality. And in German history, you all know that there were the Jews had throughout the entire history a lot of problems in Central Europe, ending in the Holocaust. And we know that throughout the centuries, or we expect that the Jewish names could trigger a higher ethical rejection in the public. It was just a hypothesis of us. Maybe I just have to mention here that in Germany, you might know from history whether a surname could sound Jewish or not. That's just due to the fact that in the end of the 18th century, the Prussians, so part of Germany, gave everybody the right to choose his own surname. And until that moment, every Christian had already a surname, but the Jews didn't. So they choose usually they choose a name that was very close to their own family. Maybe because they worked with gold, so they called themselves Goldman. Or maybe they had a red seal over their shop, so they called them Rothschild. And there are several examples for that, and so we said maybe this effect could trigger a specific moral rejection. And then we formulated the following hypothesis. So we said, ethically, we all agree probably on the fact that if we do a specific investment, it should be judged ethically in the same way, whether it's a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim, or an atheist, that there shouldn't be any difference. Please, on the next slides. So our hypothesis was that investments of individuals with Jewish names are more often judged unethical than those of individuals with non-Jewish names. Next slide, please. How have we done that? I don't want to go too deep in the methodology. I would like to concentrate on the results. We put a vignette. A vignette is like a text where you just change a very small aspect of the vignette. So everybody was confronted with the same story. You can't read it right now, but you see just an investment case of a 45-year-old that works as an associate in Munich. And in the end, it doesn't change so much. So it was just an investment situation that we gave to everybody, and we just changed the name of the investor. So sometimes it was a name that could be seen as Jewish, and someone was a name that could be seen as non-Jewish. And then we even tried it with foreign names, Italian names and British names. And in the end, we just ask everybody whether it's ethical or not ethical. So maybe the next slides, or we go directly, please, to slide number 16. So these were just the names that you can see here. Let's go to the next slide, please. Exactly, and that was the result. So everybody was asked whether this behavior was ethical, reprehensible or not, and the higher the amount is, the more it was considered unethical. And we saw for German Jewish names that exactly the same investment was considered to be unethical, whereas the investment of German non-Jewish names were regarded much less unethical. Please to the next slide. And it's also the last slide of this small experiment. Here you can see two other bars, like British names and Italian names. We checked it again, and here they were on the same level than German non-Jewish names. So why this experiment? This experiment, I used that, then let's please go to the next slides, as an example to show you that human beings have a lot of biases, especially when we talk about the investment context and financial markets. And I've also worked on a lot of these behavioral, please next slide, behavioral topics even in other contexts, and they're not triggered as much as in financial markets. So please go to the next slide. My statement, therefore, would be artificial intelligence and more digitized financial markets in general are a chance to decrease these biases. So it's not only a challenge for us, but even a chance to exactly decrease these kind of biases and make the market more equal and decrease discrimination, as we already talked about this morning. So please to the next slide. So when we talk about the normative implications, what we learn for that, literature often talks about 4 characteristics for effective ethical financial markets, like it should be voluntary, your participation in financial markets. And it's very close to the rules or to the frameworks when we talk about artificial intelligence, to the idea of autonomy. You always should opt in voluntarily. Transparency, you should understand the data, or you should understand what is going on, and there should be real-time quotas so that everybody has the same amount of information to make good and informed decisions. And the next point is the information efficiency, that the more information financial markets get and are then traded, the better it is, because therefore our ideas of the market are better. I mean, sometimes stock markets are closed in moments when stock markets have moved very quickly. Just think about 9/11, like they closed the stock market for one day. What is the effect? That there we have much less panic in society, but on the other hand, we don't get the information treated effectively or efficiently in the right moment, because the next days, maybe their prices, they are much lower. So we all have also an incentive, or we want that to see the information as fast as possible. Of course, reliability, and that's exactly the same that we need for artificial intelligence systems. So on the last slide, please, I would like to mention actions that I think we can derive from the things that I talked about for governments and for financial institutions. So first of all, I think we should broaden the scope of financial supervisory authorities to tech companies. Right now, they're mostly checking on banks or on investment companies, but we should broaden this scope to big tech companies. I mean, just think about how important Google Pay, PayPal, or whatever is since years, and how much is even getting in the next years with new technology. We should develop ethical AI rules, especially for the financial sector. That's something that, in my opinion, is underdeveloped right now. We talk a lot about health, we talk autonomous driving, for instance, but much less about financial markets. And the last aspect is we should include digital ethics in corporate responsibility reporting frameworks. That is also not so much developed so far, so that companies, and this is directly the link for the actions needed by financial institutions, that they have to disclose their own policies, their own strategies, and their own conduct of specific questions. And exactly these are the arguments with which I would like to close my short presentation. I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer every question. And I want to close. Be also careful with your own biases, and not only with the biases of machines. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Max, Raphael Max, thank you for the presentation. So what we'll do is, because we want to, they have a class at 3. We want you to note down your questions, then we'll come back. Then you can ask the questions, and Dr. Max will be here. Yeah. All right. Another round of applause, Dr. Max. All right, so the next presentation is the Real Ethics Consultant presentation, and it's going to be done by Dr. Seth Christopher Yawapia. So he's a doctor. So he has a PhD in medical research, international health, and also a PhD in reproductive health sciences. So he's going to talk to us. Give a round of applause to Dr. Yawapia.
All right, good afternoon. Yeah, we thank every one of you here for honoring today's section. We are talking about ethics. And one of the requirements is that it is only ethical that since we invited you, if you are here, we must appreciate that you are here. Clap for yourself for being here. And so I hope that and I want us to look quickly at what emerging issues as far as ethics is concerned relating to AI. There are so many issues, but there are some of them that I want us to really abreast our minds to, and then look at the extent to which we can attempt at really either solving it, reducing some of them, or at least minimizing the risk. Next. So, what is ethics at all? We've been talking about ethics. What is it at all? This provides us with some guidance on what ethics simply is. Moral principles that governs a person's behavior or conduct of an activity. We are giving machines the ability to think like human beings. And so, while machines are, we human beings are giving them that chance to think smartly as human beings. And so, what is the moral principle that guides how we expect these machines to think and to operate? And so that brings in the issue of ethics. But it's important for us to appreciate that as far as the African region is concerned, the future of AI has only begun. The future of AI has only begun. And if the future of AI has only begun, then it's only important for us to recognize that then the ethical challenges or the ethical dilemma have just been birthed. Because we will continue to have so many ethical issues. But if we can be able to address those ethical issues our moral agency to be able to decipher between what is right, what is not right, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, what is trustworthy, what is not trustworthy, what is reasonable, what is not reasonable, what is factual, what is not factual, what is beneficial, what is not beneficial. These things must be imbibed in us right from the onset. Inasmuch as we believe in the ability of policy frameworks to guide us, behind the development, the deployment, the uptake of any artificial intelligence model is human being. And that human being is a moral being who has agency to be ethical. And that is why we are starting with ourselves here. Are we okay with that? So we all know that AI is a fourth industrial revolution. So AI doesn't belong to somewhere. It belongs to the now. In this presentation, we'll be addressing three things. Does ethics mean anything for AI penetration in Africa? In Ghana, does it mean anything? This ethics thing we are talking about, does it mean anything? Then, what are the core ethical issues that, as you sit here as an AI developer or future AI developer, that should catch your minds, that should stimulate your thoughts, and lead you to really think about this model that I'm trying to go in to develop. What questions should I be asking myself? The early speakers spoke about 3 of the 6 geography questions. I'm a social scientist, medical sociologist, so I love to see myself as that. The 3 geography questions, of course, they are said, but he asked the why, the how, and the who. Very important questions. So we are going to address these 3, and then we would get some food for thought, and before we leave here, shall we progress? Does ethics mean anything for you as you sit here? As far as AI is concerned, yes. Because the AI platform you're developing, if it is ethically grounded, it shapes responsibility. It shapes responsibility. If your AI model you are going to develop or you are going to use is ethically grounded, it facilitates inclusiveness. When we say inclusive, what are we talking about? We are talking about a situation where in Ghana, we know that in terms of phone usage or ICT usage, our women are relatively lagging behind. There is evidence to that. Many males they use more ICT or they have higher access to ICT than our women. So if you are a developer, and I know that many of you guys are going to be great AI developers, innovations, solutions to address our problems. One question that should catch your mind is the approach you are bringing. Does it widen the gap that exists between marginalized groups, or it rather bridges and facilitates inclusion? Does it bring people together? Does it allow people who are in disadvantaged societies to have access to opportunities, to have access to the platforms that you are creating? If it doesn't, then it brings a lot of questions for you to address. So ethics anchor artificial intelligence, usefulness, and sustainability. How does that work? If the AI platform or AI model you have deployed is ethical, it will not come in 1 year and it is over. It cannot be workable again. Let me give an example. ChatGPT is a very nice thing. But you know that because of the ethical issues that have emerged around it, there is a counter platform, AI-generated model that has been developed. Assuming there were no ethical issues, I am not sure that the young developer who has developed a counter to the ChatGPT, so that those of you who have planned to do your first degree and master's thesis by just typing in to write your full essay for you. When you write it, because of the ethical nature of it, we will be able to catch you nicely by using the counter AI generated model, so that we will be able to find out that we are really educating you with a comprehensive education, and not just for you to sit somewhere and with your thesis or your long essay, just type. Yesterday, for instance, I just typed in, what is intimate partner violence in ChatGPT? And it gave me, I've worked several projects, it gave me the same definition I have in my work. I was quite shocked. Very classic definition. So, if AI model that you deploy is ethical, the approach or the deployment will be sustainable. People are going to use its usefulness will last over a period of time, and it will be beneficial to mankind. If there are so many ethical issues around it, what happens? What happens is that it is challenged, and over time, you see that its usefulness, its merit over time becomes questioned, and then you would require new deployment to be able to still remain relevant. And because of the need for ethics in AI mainstreaming, that is why we have so many international organizations bringing standards so that we will have standardization. And by standardization, there will be regulation to really address it. I'll come to the issue of regulation vis-a-vis innovation, because that is another ethical question. How much do we regulate? Because the more we regulate, the more we face the ethical challenge of stifling innovation. Assuming this ChatGPT that has come, assuming it has been regulated so much that we will not have any additional innovations. We will not have the counter one that has come. We will not have it. To the extent that even scientists who are publishing and doing research work are saying that they now consider ChatGPT to have a moral agency as a human being, and they have considered it as an altar to a scientific work. How does the machine now get the status and qualification as an author of a scientific paper? These are the ethical issues that, how many of us have access to AI platforms? It's a big inequality issue. The same AI must be able to design so that it really bridges inequality gap. Access to the previous one that has even come. How many of you have attempted to use ChatGPT? You have attempted to use it. Oh, respectfully, many of us have not even heard it. And a new one has come, addressing the challenges of the ChatGPT. Then the issues emerging from, but what does that new thing solve? Is it just innovation for innovation's sake, or innovation to really solve an empirical problem? And it's a place where privacy matters so much. Is AI going to lead us to a post-privacy era where everything is going to shape and change the African way of the African value system? These are ethical issues that comes up. Guys, we are deploying doesn't have respect for African values. The privacy of sex. We have sex robots, sex bots. You've not heard that before, right? Yes, there are sex bots, and there are about 4 or 5 of them in deployment. Or Lumidors. Lumidors will just respond to you that I like this one or I don't like this one. I'm not saying that go and search and go and. But this is AI innovation that is in the system. The question is it really solving our problem? Is it changing our values? How do we address such issues? So now, issues that we must put our minds to. Between regulation and the dilemma of AI, how much of regulation do we need so that we can have standards for AI innovations? How much of regulation do we need such those regulations will not stifle innovation. How much do we need? Should we regulate? Should we not regulate? If we don't regulate, some AI innovations can abuse human rights. It can just mess up. But if we also regulate, is it also going to stifle progress? Is it going to give developers the free range to bring innovation, great innovations to solve the problems of humanity? We are talking about Afrocentric based AI that needs to be deployed. The question is, how should we go about it? Should we reinvent the wheel when there is so much evidence that has been done in the Western societies? Should we contextualize? And by contextualization, what should we leave? What should we not leave? These are things, ethical issues that we should really avert our minds to. We are talking about quantification, facets. We discussed it here. Is the drive towards quantification? What about the qualitative evaluation of AI dimensions, ethics? Yes, the qualitative dimensions are largely subjective, but what should we do? What should we do? So these are things that we should avert our minds to in the AI ethics issue. So as I said, AI has only begun, and we need to, the earlier African and AI scientists engage the standards, the better. Now, just by wrapping up my last but one slide, there are case studies of ethical issues. ChatGPT is very nice, just one of them. The point is, assuming you stay home and you write your thesis and present it to us, we award you your degree, first class. How does that work? Is it not nice? Oh, is it not nice? It is. So how should we go about it? ChatGPT becoming an author to a research article. How do we go about it? What about voice cloning? Recently, in America, some guys use the voices of the president. The president playing Pokemon, debating Pokemon, and then playing card games. People have used voice cloning to take people's money from the banks. How do we address it? AI systems are leading in situations where people are refused loans due to the algorithm that was used in designing them. Do we have solutions? Should we consider the machine should not have moral agency? Is it about awareness? Should we do watermarking so that if the document comes, we see that this document is AI generated? What should be the approach? And I think that, should we use a ChatGPT classifier? I think that the solution is capacity building. And I think when the GIZ lady was making a presentation, I think she reiterated it. Capacity. Building the capacity of AI stakeholders so that we can mainstream ethics. Once we are ethical in our own orientation, the models we develop will be ethical. Thank you.
All right, Doc, thanks so much for that presentation. We're supposed to have coded rights, AI, and human rights in Contest to Africa by Lavina Ramkinson, and unfortunately we can't have her. So we'll jump straight to Rails AI in Healthcare Lead presentation. It's going to be done by Dr. Henry Nunumensa. A round of applause for him.
Hello? Please, this is going to be a very short presentation. So relax and enjoy. Control. Okay, yeah, so I'm just coming to tell you about what we are doing as the health team under the Real Lab. right? So as I stated earlier, we have different themes, health, agric, energy systems, ethics in AI. So this is for the health. So the outline is as follows: introduction, some guiding principles or philosophies that guides the work we do. And also we'll look at the ongoing research that I said. Very, very brief. Please, next. Okay, so we'll steal some quotes from these popular AI pioneers. How many of you have heard of Fei Li? If you know ImageNet, you know her. Okay, that's good. All right, so Fei Li made a comment. She said, AI has the potential to transform healthcare by enabling earlier diagnosis, guiding personalized treatment, and ultimately improving patients' outcome. So keywords here: earlier diagnosis, personalized treatment. Right, that's what I want us to take from this one. Please, let's move to Andrew Ng. Those of you who like Coursera courses, AI courses, you know him. Right, also a Stanford professor, and worked with Google Brain and stuff. So please, forward. Okay, so Andrew Ng is saying that AI will empower doctors and patients alike. So this is answering some of the questions that people had during the first session. You get it, right? Is it going to take our jobs? Is it going to do what? No. He's reassuring us that it's going to empower both doctors and patients, right? By enabling doctors to make faster and more accurate diagnosis, and empowering patients to take charge of their own health, right? So this is something that is dear to us as members of the health team. So next, please. Please, next. Okay, so what are the things that are the philosophies that guide us? We have patient-centered care. It's spoiling the beauty of the presentation. You see, enjoy. You see, we have patient-centered care. So basically, we want to come up with solutions that at the end of the day will make the patients happy. Happy how? Being able to come up with solutions that do not exclude even the smallest, the minority. Minority is small, so you. AI lab, we also ensure that, or try to provide day in, day out, we have new things coming up, right? New data, right? And these data, you need to add to your old data to train, so continuous improvement. Continuous improvement is one thing that is dear to us, because once it's health, right, you need to make sure that, and I'm trying to solve Africa's problems or Ghana's problems, right? We have collaborators that we work with to make sure that we are able to actually achieve what we've seen. Germany, what have you, the list goes on. You see, it means radiology image translate. So all that we are doing basically is simple. We have CT scans, and we are translating CT scans to MRI, right? You see, CT scans have their advantages. MRIs also have their advantages, right? But one thing is that MRI, so all that we are doing is that we want to come up with the MRI images from these ones. So please, let's move. Then the second one is ROHI, showing images of tissues. Use those images to diagnose. But these, so we don't have that luxury. You get it? So we have to innovate. So why can we use a camera from a phone or something, low resolution image? Then, and knowing that we are able to aid the doctors, come and talk about that. We are looking at generating knowledge graphs using graph neural networks and what have you in all that. So please, let's move. Next, please. Okay, so yes, the last project I'm going to talk about is accessibility tool for hearing and speech impaired people. Right, so here, but this that you are seeing here is trying to detect signs, right, from posture. So you are looking at the posture, then based on the posture, you detect whether it is this sign that the person is doing that would encounter. So these are just some issues. Next, please. Some works we are doing in the lab. Please, next. Thank you. Enjoy.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Henry Nunumensa. Let's go to now we have another presentation, and it's on invigorating Ubuntu ethics in AI for healthcare, enabling equitable care. And it's going to be delivered by Dr. Lamek Amungongo.
I'll try by all means to explain a very, very difficult subject, which I think is Afrocentric and very relevant. How many of you know what Ubuntu is? So the rest, you don't know what Ubuntu is or what it implies. Okay, Ubuntu is actually African. It's just an African way of life. So as we trying to get the slides up, just a small disclaimer. I'm not an ethicist. I'm a software engineer, grounded by good ethical principles that they will ensure that they are going to, these solutions will help clinicians deliver the best care to every patient, and also ensure that, these solutions do not cause harm, and really ensure that they provide equitable care. Interesting. It's actually always at the technical conferences where we have technical problems, right? So perhaps, we might need AI to automate the whole. Okay. Yeah, so basically today we'll be to the next slide, please. Okay, so in this presentation, the outline, I'll just briefly give an introduction and then AI ethics and talk to you what Ubuntu is and some in healthcare attractive. First is the amount of routine clinical data that is available, that is your images, but also data from electronic health records, plus advanced computing. The advanced computing enable us to be able to do processing faster and be able to run complex algorithms within a short period of time. So this makes AI attractive. And in healthcare, AI can actually help improve efficiency. We can use AI to reduce the risk to diseases, but most importantly is in research and development. Just think about how long did it take us to get a vaccine for different proteins and different stuff that enable us to get the vaccine. So, and therapy to get to those regions. But then imagine if you had a tumor this big, and then it becomes this smaller after 2 weeks. And if you continue treating this whole area, you are then going to also then cause toxicity to access is most important in Africa, especially in areas where we do not have the specialized experts. Imagine a clinic deep in the village. There is only a nurse. Global South, AI can help. And AI will also has an opportunity to the existing inequalities. So we can take these inequalities and then build it in the AI. So, and there are studies that have shown that AI applications used in healthcare, for example, the ones used for reading medical images, they can be biased. And some of these algorithms are biased, we need to account for. And then the second study looked at commercial AI algorithms in the US, and they found that some of these studies actually predicted the cost of care for Black people to ethics in healthcare become necessary today, because we are increasingly using AI as a society. So an AI presents new risks. You, in actual fact, you have diabetes, and then you end up going into a state called hyperglycemia, meaning that a high level of blood glucose levels. That can also cause some of your organs in the body to fail, and also then can have detrimental consequences. And we know that healthcare is not new to ethics. Ethics has been in healthcare, and they govern the practice in healthcare sector. And this was done previously, so what you call bioethics. And the bioethics have those, the first four principles, which is beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, and justice. And for most of the AI ethics currently in the Western world, they are based on what you call very important explicability, which talks on aspects of explainability. Of course, the AI for ethics is a very, very important starting point for healthcare, for AI ethics in general, and specifically in healthcare, guidelines for AI ethics. But most of these studies lack consensus. Next slide. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, okay, I think I'll just go through because I understand. That's on the next slide. So ethical frameworks to govern ethics in healthcare, which looks at things such as protect autonomy, promote human safety, ensure transparency, foster accountability, ensure equity, and promote AI that is sustainable. But what this, it's a matter that affects all of us as a community. So there is then a need for us to really look at how do we make AI ethics more inclusive? How do we transform reality? And rationality has a narrow view when it comes to things such as autonomy, when it comes to things such as fairness, because they focus more or emphasize more on individual unity. So, and we present that Ubuntu ethics present an attractive alternative to Western ethical principles that can really ensure that AI help clinicians deliver the best care to every patient. Next slide, please. So, not that you are human because you are a professor, not you are a human because you are a doctor, but you are a human because of other people. I am because you are. And this really grounds a normative belief that we have about personhood in Africa. And this does not imply, don't get me wrong, that's the operating system, the Linux one. And of course, that has somehow diluted what Ubuntu shown, that Ubuntu can work in other social care systems, like also actually applied Ubuntu or to alleviate some Africa, or they are going to rise. But because we believe, of course, Ubuntu is not perfect. Some other people say that it's communal, and the fact that it's communal, they say that it's incompatible with individual liberties or your individual rights. But global medical bioethics, but at the same time also, we want to decolonize bioethics. When you train an AI algorithm, there are two aspects in the life cycle. You choose the data, and you choose also the type of model that you want. This can then help communities to take ownership, but most importantly, what we are saying on this slide is that, of course, Ubuntu and Kantianism all have the same approach to bioethics, but the difference is on how it's interpreted. For instance, Kantianism says that for you to have informed consent, for example, you must be rational. So if you are deemed that your rationality, this collaborative spirit is key to ensuring that we avert the abuse of data that is collected. And then quickly, just the last slide on trust. Of course, currently, trust is actually defined, or if it's observed from a European or Anglo-American point of view. And these actually look at trust more from a law perspective. And there are some long-term relationships that people have with the community. So in this case, we believe that Ubuntu will help build trust in AI solution in two ways. The first way is creating long-term relationship and collaboration with the community. And the other aspect is the aspect of accountability. And we believe that the AI community, we need to look at trust as a long-term aspect. and that needs to be that cannot be realized without the community. Last slide, please. So if you did not hear anything that I've said in this presentation, these are the takeaways that I want you to take away. And that Ubuntu actually brings a new perspective to ground ethical principles that will ensure that we will be able to develop AI solutions in healthcare to be more responsible and also to be deployed in a way that is not just the developer, but is the community. All of us need to work together to ensure that the aim of AI in healthcare is to ensure that that lowest person in your community is looked after and the AI solution provide the best care for that patient. And one thing that also we can then Ubuntu can help us is to make sure that we have inclusive guidelines, because it's guidelines that influence policy, or it's guidelines that influence how the policy should look like. And this if policies is only influenced by Kantianism, how do you expect now these policies to work for us as Africans? So we need, and I think the last slide is just the conclusion. And to conclude is that AI ethics affect all of us, and we all need to participate, and there is a need to attractive policies or guidelines that can ensure that AI ethics in healthcare include everyone and do not and provide and help clinicians provide the best care to every patient. Thank you.
Of pregnancy is gestational hypertension, and if you're not careful, it develops into preeclampsia that can lead to major organ damage. One can die. But there's a solution, and so machine learning for identifying teenage patients at a risk of gestational hypertension, and it's going to be delivered by Dr. Atli Gamundani. Let's welcome Dr. Atli.
Thank you. How many minutes? 10.
Okay, I'm being punished. I'm given 5 minutes, so I'm going to work with those 5 minutes. Is that you? Okay, so at least to give context to be sharing on, this is work at the very early stages, so I'm not going to be much data to be presenting with you, but at least just to share the preliminary ideas behind that we are embarking on. So in terms of the research project itself, you may see a lot of logos that are actually displayed on my presentation. It's a funded project, as well as part of the HASH network, which is also an upcoming network specifically dealing in healthy, in maternal well-being especially. And we also have AI4D as one of the main sponsors in IDRC, as well as organization that I'm representing, which is working on this project, which is the Pan-African Information and Communication Technology for short. Right, we can move on to the next slide. So as an outline, what I'll just simply share with you is simply where we are in terms of what is our ecosystem as PICTA. It's a non-governmental organization. We partner with universities, and what exactly are we doing in this space of healthy? Then the aspects behind the rationale of us initiating this project, and what we have also maybe looked around in terms of how machine learning is being used, especially on the aspect of gestational hypertension in teenage pregnancies, as well as the approach that we are proposing for our work. And probably I can just fly you the team that is working behind this project. Next slide. So of our ecosystem that is a SPICTA, which is the Pan-African Information and Communication Technology, we have a lot of arms. And out of those arms, we are trying to really look at the different African challenges, especially the underprivileged communities, underserviced communities. And we happen to be working with a lot of youth across Southern Africa, mostly in South Africa for now, and we run a lot of hackathons around some of the challenges that are presented to us from communities specifically. So mostly we are community-driven in terms of our research, and in terms of our partnership with universities and international organizations, we are mostly informed by what exactly are the challenges on the ground, wherein we are mostly inclined towards focusing on our key principles, that is making sure that no one is left behind. That's one of our key principles in a sense. I think that ties in with the Ubuntu that we just heard from Dr. Ngongo recently. Can you move on to the next slide? Right. Let me now indulge you in a project that we are working on, which is looking at the possibility of developing a machine learning model that will be handling or deal with gestational hypertension in teenage pregnancies. As the MC was introducing, I just say to myself, this is already done, because he touched on the core aspect of what the challenge is all about. Because gestational hypertension in teenage pregnancies could actually explode into something else, which is really a bit of a challenge, which we call pre-eclampsia, as research also indicates. And looking at some of the challenges of really not paying attention to gestational hypertension, which is high blood pressure that would actually be found in teenage, or not only in teenage pregnancies, but in pregnant women who previously didn't have that high blood pressure. Because you would have to measure it under strain. Sometimes they say you have to measure it after every 4 hours, after a certain period of having them maybe observed under pregnancy after the 2-week. So if you look at some of the costs to the treatment of eclampsia, this is something that we have to really pay attention to, because these figures, 20,000 for just treating gestational hypertension, which could escalate to 28,603 US dollars if you are looking at those figures according to the research that I'm citing there. So looking at that, that indicates to you that the cost of not really identifying risk factor, especially on teenage pregnancies, who happen to be especially the age range that are at risk of that kind of a health risk, is actually very costly. So this is why it's important to really consider this as one of the challenges. Then in terms of gestational hypertension, it's one of the second leading causes of death. Of course, it's a bit alarming if you look at it, but this is where we're also saying it's an area that needs attention. It's an area, especially if you are on the ground, this is one aspect to also focus on as well. Next slide, please. Right. When we did a bit of some preliminary literature review to this extent, or whilst we were preparing to propose that this is work that could be embarked on, and this is, so we realized some of the models have actually been using some of these algorithms, your logistic regression, your decision trees, and your SVMs as well. So if you look at some of these algorithms and to what extent they are able to provide maybe some estimation, predictions, etc., we also notice that there are some limitations in terms of their capability. So one algorithm alone will not be in a position to provide you an adequacy in terms of the solution that you would want to design. As a result, our approach is a little bit different. If I would actually share that with you. The next slide, please. I'm just checking my 5 minutes that I was given. Right, so in terms of what we are intending to do in this project, we are trying to develop a machine learning model by comparing the prediction performance of 9 classification algorithms to identify teenage patients at risk of gestational hypertension. So this is the list of the 9. Of course, at a point in time when we presented this during a certain platform in December in Uganda at the one of the first workshops we had under HASH, we were also recommended maybe to consider 6, not 9, but we still feel there is need also to look at these different algorithms for us to reach at a decision where we are saying a combination of any of these algorithms, which is one also of the approaches that we have seen not having been used in a sense. And why this is important, especially coming from the responsible AI background, we are simply saying we don't want to misinform in terms of our model, to say we have come up with a model, but we haven't really exhaustively looked at other alternatives around the same solution that we are trying to design, which is why we are also trying to go the extra mile of looking at the different algorithms, compare them, mix them, in a sense, in the process of trying to come up with our solution. Next slide, please. Right, of course, in terms of our approach, we are also looking at gathering clinical data sets of teenage pregnancies related. Of course, for now, in terms of our focus, we are looking at Namibia as a context. We also have an opportunity to expand this into South Africa. So we are looking at localized data sets in a sense. And we're also looking at training our dataset on those 9 binary classification models, as I've highlighted previously. And we'll be also doing the testing and comparing of the prediction performances before we could settle for a model that would say this will be a best fit in terms of this scenario that we are looking at. And in terms of the variable or the features that we are going to be using, the BMI, the blood pressure, just to list or maybe to highlight what you're actually already seeing on the list there. Next slide, please. Right. Of course, like in terms of the evaluation of any AI model, this is maybe something very common to you, looking at the true positives, true negative, and in terms of how you are measuring the accuracy as well, the whole equation that you try to use, especially using the confusion matrix. So in a sense, we also be employing the same approach. But over and above that, we are more interested and thrilled to look at how now using the model that Prof. team managed to come up with in terms of measuring responsible AI in terms of our model that we would have developed. So we are happy that there is work that has already been done. We combine that with what we are already doing, because on a technical level, yes, you can do this, but that's not enough. You need to go an extra mile to measure how responsible. We're going to take the necessary steps to ensure that we have the necessary within the country. Of course, that differs in terms of the approaches you may use in your context, but more or less, if we are looking at how we are approaching our project, this is basically what we are looking at. And the other important aspect we are going to emphasize in terms of the data set we are using is confidentiality and that aspect. Then the fair and explainable AI principles to be adopted among others. And the human rights is at the bedrock in terms of how we are approaching also our research, especially in the context of responsible AI. What we are looking at is saying we are co-designing with the community, and we have to have their input in one way or the other. Next slide, please. Right, I might as well just say I'm almost wrapping up. This is just to show you the team behind what this project. Gloria Iawa, she's also a UNESCO chair holder on gender and digital technologies in maternal health, gender and AI researcher as well at Namibia University of Science and Technology. I would actually say I have a powerful team of women, and I'm not here just talking about gestational hypertension in teenage girls without the right population to work with. Let me show you the next researcher there. We have Dr. Swama Hamnyela. She's also a senior lecturer and associate dean in also a researcher in the maternal health and health researcher as well. So we have the right people on board. Then the third member of the team, that's Prof. Bunusawa, an associate professor and also a researcher in the gender, AI, and cybersecurity researcher as well. So we are trying to also have that interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approach. Of course, we also have other partners we are partnering in this whole project as well. Of course, you can skip the next one because it's just myself and you're all seeing me here. Next slide. Yeah, that's me. So maybe for the purposes of getting my name right, I often normally miss the other T when people write it. Next slide, I think that should be the end of it. Oh, okay, those are the sentences that you can actually read around some of the machine learning algorithms that have been used to also try and predict gestational hypertension in teenage pregnancies, and that could be a starting point. So from my end, I was just there to share with you an ongoing project that we have just started. Thank you for your attention. All right.
Thank you very much. We're quite pressed for time, so we hope to finish very soon. About 3:30, we should be done and leave this place. So we have a presentation, and that's the last one. Coming from Lavina Ramkison, and she's going to talk about coded rights, AI, and human rights in context of Africa, and it's going to be done online. So let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, but thank you so much for the opportunity to. Researchers in the context of Africa, together with how do we go about creating a more intelligent tomorrow for ourselves. And, you know, the tech colonization conversations came up together with a host of other things, you know, the tech ability as well. But, you know, to delve into this, we know that tech is responsible and can do anything that we pretty much can imagine, right? And I think even our imagination, it has surpassed that. And now we find ourselves in a moment in time where we need to start pondering about this. This means, you know, the good news is I've discovered some inefficiencies. The bad news is that you're one of them. Now, this is pretty much either from a robot's perspective or from a human perspective. And this in itself really speaks volumes to the kind of conundrum we're going to find ourselves in a very short space of time. To take an example of the likes of Amazon, we've seen them go from 0 robots to about 500,000 robots in a space of 10 years. So that's quite a large, already infiltrated and made part of it. So we started to define and ask ourselves the questions, how do we actually start incorporating the balanced view of human rights, children's rights, you know, and not having yet. Africa is one that is really huge and one that is quite prominent. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yeah, we can hear you, Lavina.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, apologies for that. So I'm going to go really super quick because I know that we hardly have any time. But yeah, so we took a good idea of what is the landscape of AI in Africa. We asked the questions as to how many people across the continent actually want AI. To what level do C-level executives actually trust in AI? And more importantly, we wanted to focus on the youth because, the average age being 18.8 years old, we decided that they need to have quite a large sort of voice in terms of this report. And with that, we believe that, parents needed an equal sort of weighting on that. If we had to look at the actual decision-making and the civil rights within an Africa context, we are quite surprised in policing policies. So what does this mean? That means that people have already started thinking of it and allowing for those applications to exist to some extent. Whether or not the regulations are there to kind of help to shape the applications or to voices of the other one was the landscape of our data and what that looked like. And we found here that in terms of AI ethics itself, there were 17 countries out of the 54. And then we know from data privacy policies, we have about 28 different countries across Africa that pretty much have some form of policy in place. But again, policy is as great as it is unless it's actually enforced. This is the point to kind of end up happening. Do we let a computer decide, conversations between human engagement or not? This is probably an extreme example, and I don't absolutely ask for anyone to try this at home or with their spouses at all. But again, this is a large topic, and I guess at the end of the day, it's how do we actually want it to be applied? How do we want it to affect us, and where do we want to bring in the balance? Is it on the decision-making end? Is it on the giving AI rights? Because the AI is probably going to become incorporated to some extent, and the rest of it. And this is just a view of the team in terms of who was actually involved with it. We have a few people that have quite a lot of credibility across the industry. We had a representation from North, South, East, West, and Central of Africa. So we believe that that was quite a good, fair representation of research across the continent. And I'm just going to end here because I know that we probably don't have enough time, but happy to kind of answer a lot of questions or, take it from there.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lavina. Okay, so gradually we're coming to the end of the program, and I would like to tell you what to expect tomorrow. So tomorrow we're starting 9. We have the role of Afrocentric data sets in promoting responsible AI in Africa. That is going to be delivered by Leclim and Rain Rail, Darlington, and TBI. And also we have AI for multi-objective optimization in extractive industries. For those of you who want to know the role of AI in the extractive industries tomorrow, please come and listen. And we have AI application also in health, and we have AI ethics in finance. No, that was delivered by Dr. Raphael Marx. Unfortunately, we're supposed to have a Q&A, but we're pressed for time, so perhaps tomorrow then we can have it. So if you have questions, please note them down. We'll try and answer them tomorrow. And we have also Rails Disease Detection Toolbox presentation. And we have workshop and next steps for rain in Africa. So these are the things you're supposed to, you should expect tomorrow. And it's also going to be a fun time. It's going to be an exciting time. So thank you so much for your time. And so tomorrow, so then I'll be handing the mic to Prof. Ponyo to just give a bit of announcement.
Thank you. The final years who had to sacrifice having their meal at lunchtime, your class reps will go upstairs and then pick your packs. The third years, you also go upstairs, but you will join the buffet. There are a few of you who couldn't get your meals, but the final years, you pick your packs and then your class reps will help you receive it and then you can go. We look forward. Is it clear? The final years, your class reps will go upstairs, pick your packs, and then bring them to you. For the third years, some pick snacks and then left. Those who are still here, you will go upstairs and then you will be served a buffet, so you will eat here. But the final years, all final years, your class reps will pick the packs and then you can pick your various packs and then go to the rooms. Is it clear? We want to say thank you for making time to be with us. As Kwesi said, tomorrow promises to be even more exciting. Darlington, where are you? Where's Darlington? I thought, let him see you. This is Kweku the Traveler. He's a very international man. He's our AI consultant, and tomorrow he will share the many works that he has done in the health space and then in the agricultural space. We'll have Caitlin also make a presentation, and then others will also come. If you have made time to be with us today, tomorrow even promises to be more exciting. We look forward to seeing all of you. Thank you.
So thank you. Have a nice day.